Hello, friends. So this is your Monday ELA lesson for Monday, January 13th, 2025. So go ahead and complete the warm-up activity. What do you notice about this photograph? And what do you wonder about this photograph? So look at this photograph. You don't really know who it is, but what do you notice? What do you wonder? Remember, when you're answering in a complete sentence. You need to have capital letters at the beginning, punctuation at the end. You're answering both questions. So when you're answering both questions, you need to refer back to the question in your answer. So I notice that. And what do you notice? This photograph makes me wonder or makes me think about or want to ask more questions about, and then fill in your answer. While you're doing that, let me go to the rest of our warm-up page. In case you've forgotten, I'm your teacher, Miss Smith, and my number is 682-777-9474. My email is tsmith@ellisaway.org. Once again, it is Monday, January 13th, 2025. While you're working on this warm-up, couple of reminders, you need to do your IXL challenge. So make sure you're logging into IXL and you're working on that. So our class expectations, we're going to listen carefully so everyone can learn. E, enter prepared and stay engaged. A, arrive on time. R, be respectful of your learning and the learning of everyone else. And N, never, ever, ever, under any circumstances, give up. Pause this recording and finish answering your question, and I'll see you on the next slide. Sorry about the extra slides. So fun times. All right, so today we are going to talk about how we can make inferences and draw conclusions about a nonfiction text using text evidence and explain how the author's word choices contribute to the meaning of the text. So put your thinking hats on, sit back, don't relax, because when we relax a little too much sometimes, we stop paying attention. So sit back, focus, follow along in the lesson. Before we go any further, we need to go over a few academic vocabulary words. The first one being central idea. That's a noun. Remember, we know nouns are a person, place, or thing. Central idea is a noun. It focuses on the big picture of the passage. We can also think of it as the main idea. Evidence, also a noun. Information from the passage that helps to explain our answers or ideas. And lastly, inference. Inference is a noun. Now, when you're making an inference, when you're inferencing, it would be a verb. Like when you're actively doing it, it is a verb. But as it is, just the definition explaining what an inference is, it is a noun. It is a smart guess that you make based on clues from the passage in your schema. That's your background knowledge. So here we go. Garrett Morgan, please forgive. Sorry, Millie. Garrett Morgan, a man of great ideas. So, what do you notice? You notice anything familiar? If you are saying, oh, that gentleman on the first page is now right here, you are correct. This is our friend Garrett Morgan, who we are going to learn about today, or this week. Garrett Morgan was an inventor who worked hard to make life better for everyone, creating new things to solve problems. He was born in 1877 in Kentucky, and he had some amazing ideas. One of his most famous inventions was the traffic signal. Before this invention, streets were dangerous because cars, bikes, and people didn't have clear rules to follow. He created a traffic signal with 3 lights to help everyone, to keep everyone safe, Today, we still use traffic signals like the one he designed. Garrett Morgan was also a problem solver. He noticed that firefighters had trouble breathing when they went into smoky buildings. So he created a device called the safety hood. This hood helped people breathe clean air. Even in dangerous situations, his inventions saved many lives. So now there are a few things that we can notice or we can refer back to in our passage. We're going to start with our highlighted words. We know that our highlighted words are the vocabulary words for this passage. So our first one is inventor. Based on the clues, and I've heard that word before, but based on the clues in this sentence, in this first paragraph, I can figure out what the meaning is if I don't know 100% what it means. So Garrett Morgan was an inventor who worked hard to make life better for everyone, creating new things to solve problems. So within that first sentence, it has inventor, and then the definition or the clues that help us develop a definition for inventor is right there. An inventor, based off of what this passage is telling me, it is someone who creates new things to solve problems. And as we look through this first page, what two problems did he see? Well, he saw people were not being safe with the traffic signals that they had, so they needed a new one. And he also saw that firefighters could not breathe in buildings because of all the smoke. So what did he do? He invented a device that would help those firefighters breathe, called the safety hood. So an inventor is someone who creates new things to solve a problem. They identify a problem and they create something new to solve it. Our next vocabulary word is device. Let me put my glasses back on. So, what is a device? I've heard of the word, but if y'all said, Miss Smith, I don't know what a device is. Can you give me the exact definition? I don't know if I could, but I'm sure within this passage there is the definition. So, Garrett Morgan was also a problem solver. He noticed that firefighters had trouble breathing when they went into smoky buildings. So he created a special device called the safety hood. This hood helped people breathe even in dangerous situations. His invention saved many lives. So we know there's a problem. They can't breathe. And firefighters can't breathe. And so he created something. So a special device called a safety hood, something that helps someone breathe. So if we look right here next to this paragraph, this is Mr. Morgan's sketches, his drawings for the safety hood. It does not look like it is something natural, something that is like grown from the ground. Kind of looks like a machine, like a robot. So what would be a device? So based off the clues from the passage and our image, a device is probably a machine that you use to, I'm not going to say solve problems, but use to, sorry, I'm about to sneeze. I'm trying not to sneeze right now. A device is not going to work now, is it? Slightly better now. So a device is a machine or a tool. So the question was, what was a device before I had to pause? A device is a machine or a tool that helps someone do something. So it helps, this device, the safety hood, helps someone, helps the firefighters breathe in fresh air during a fire. The device he created, called the traffic signal, is a machine that helps people get around traffic stops. Yeah, that's the right word. Safely without getting hurt. And if you look right here next to the first paragraph, that is an image of his drawings for the first traffic signal. It looks a little bit different than what we are used to now, like the three lights going 1, 2, 3. The original one had like kind of looked like a T. Yeah, like Miss name. Go figure. So, excuse me, I'm so sorry. Even though Garrett Morgan's ideas helped a lot of people, it wasn't always easy for him. He was an African American man at a time when many people faced discrimination, which means he wasn't always treated fairly. But Garrett Morgan didn't give up. He was determined to make the world a better place and kept working on his invention. Garrett Morgan's story teaches us to be creative and persistent. When we see a problem, we can think of ways to fix it. We can, just like Garrett Morgan, we can make a difference if we work hard and believe in our ideas. So, our next two vocabulary words are discrimination and persistence. Now, if you look at this sentence where we see discrimination, it says, hey, I'm going to tell you what this word means. And how do we know it tells us that? We know that because, let me find my pen, because it says which which means, not his means, which means it's telling us as a reader, I'm going to tell you what this word means. So discrimination is when someone is not treated fairly. Now, why do you think Mr. Morgan was discriminated against? Sorry. I apologize. So if we look at Mr. Morgan and we look at in the sentence, it tells us that he was an African American man and he was also born in 1877, I think. Back then, there was a lot of discrimination and African Americans were not always treated fairly because of the color of their skin. So, but he did not stop. Just because people were not treating him fairly does not mean that he stopped. Excuse me. I am so sorry. And then I'm so sorry. Feeling better. Our last word is persistent. Garrett Morgan's story teaches us to be creative and persistent. When we see a problem, we can think of ways to fix it, just like Garrett Morgan. We can make a difference if we work hard and believe in our ideas. Now, persistent. If you think of our story after the fall last week with Humpty Dumpty, and he overcame his fear. He overcame his fear because he was persistent. So, but did Humpty Dumpty create something? No. So, if we look at the sentences right around the word persistent, it's not going to tell us really what it means. It gives us clues that help support the meaning, but it doesn't fully tell us what it means. We had to look up at the last two sentences of the previous paragraph. But Garrett Morgan didn't give up, very much like Humpty Dumpty. He was determined to make the world a better place and kept working on his invention. So didn't give up, determined, kept working. So if you think about Humpty Dumpty, who was persistent to overcome his fear and after the fall, we can use these words, didn't give up, determined, kept working, to help us develop that meaning, that help us develop the definition of persistent. And persistence means you don't stop no matter what obstacles come in your way. Okay, like can't stop, won't stop. I'm going to do this. I'm going to find a way to achieve. And that's how Garrett Morgan was. I'm going to close this. There we go. So we have our vocabulary words all laid out for us. Device, a noun, a special tool or machine made to help people do something. I'm so sorry. Garrett Morgan made a device called a safety hood to help people breathe in smoky places. So a special machine to help someone do something. It helped people breathe in special places. Next one, discrimination. Treating someone unfairly because they are different. Like how Garrett Morgan wasn't always treated nicely because he was African American. Inventor, a noun, a person who thinks of and makes new things to solve problems. Garrett Morgan, who created the traffic signal and safety hood, was an inventor. And lastly, persistent, an adjective. Now, we don't always talk about adjectives, but in your OLS, you have learned about them. An adjective describes. It's a describing word. And so persistent is an adjective. It's describing the noun. It's describing Garrett Morgan. So never giving up, even when things are hard. Garrett Morgan was persistent. We're describing Garrett Morgan's character. He was persistent because he kept working on his ideas, even when people didn't treat him fairly. So what are you going to do? That is such a great question. You guys have the best questions. First thing you're going to do is you're going to, while I close these blinds because the sun is like right in my face, you are going to answer these two questions. How do Garrett Morgan's inventions show that he cares about others? And then, would you rather invent a new device or be persistent in learning something new? So you have to answer these two questions first. Remember when we're answering these questions, so the drop up box, not drop down. The first question is always right there for you. So you can just type in your answers. I can't do it because I'm in the teacher mode. And then once you're done answering, how do Garrett Morgan's inventions show that he cared? You can do the recording. I will let you do the recording, but you can't do emojis. So no Roblox dancers or anything like that. You can do the recording of your answer. Then just hit the up arrow to answer, would you rather invent a new device or be persistent in learning something? Remember, you're answering incomplete sentences. Then your next activity. So, before the break, on Mondays, you would always rewrite your definition in your own words. We're kicking it up a notch now. Now, I've already given you the definition. So the definition of each vocabulary word is next to the word. And then underneath it, I've given you an example sentence. You are going to write your own example sentence for those vocabulary words. So just like I wrote an example sentence using the word device, Garrett Morgan made a device called a safety hood to help people breathe in smoky places. You are going to use that word in a sentence. Make sure your sentence matches the meaning of the definition. So you're not going to say a tree is a device because a tree is not a machine. So, excuse me. For discrimination, like how Garrett Morgan wasn't treated nicely because he was African American. You're going to write your own example sentence. When you write your own example sentence, you're not going to say, Garrett Morgan was always treated, I am so sorry. Garrett Morgan was always treated fairly, because that does not match the meaning of discrimination. You're writing in a sentence to match the meaning of each definition. Inventor, a person who thinks of and makes new things to solve problems. Garrett Morgan invented the traffic signal and safety hood. You're not going to write a sentence that says, Garrett Morgan drove a car or fought fires. He might have done both of those things. But does that help us understand what an inventor is? No, it doesn't. So your sentence has to match what the meaning of that word is. And lastly, my ears are hurting. I apologize. Lastly, persistent, never giving up, even when things are hard. My example sentence is, never give up, even when things are hard. Can't stop, won't stop. I kind of basically just rewrote that because I was tired that day. So, your example sentence can't be like, I'm tired, I don't want to do this. That's not an example sentence. That's a non-example sentence, but that's definitely not an example sentence of persistence. So write your own example sentence for each of your vocabulary words. When you are done with that, and you have, well, so this will be, you can always, when I say skip back, but just turn the page back to see my example sentences. But you also have the page, like the passage in the circle, the triangle circle. So if you want to go back and reread that without having to scroll all the way back to get to it. Make sure you're writing on complete sentences, my friends. Lastly, so today you are going to be working in ELA, you're going to be working on 8.11, opinion writing skills wrap up. Tuesday, 8.12, figurative language. Wednesday, 8.13, big ideas, critical skills. Thursday, 12.1, we the people A. And Friday, 12.2, we the people B. I am so sorry. With that being said, get your work done. Miss Smith loves you. Don't forget, do your IXL challenge. It'll be great. I'll see you tomorrow in class. I love you all. I miss you already. Hasta la pasta, my friends. Bye.